right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have something a little bit annoying to talk about. And unfortunately, it's about ZZZ and the problems that I have with ZZZ. There's clearly a lot of stuff that ZZZ isn't really doing right. There's clearly a lot of stuff that the devs themselves have messed up. And you don't need to take my word for it. You can just take the word of the lead developer who released a very, very intimate 14-minute video sorry for showing the better game, my bad. A very, very intimate 14-minute video talking about all of the issues that are in the game, talking about things like enemy design, talking about things like power creep, talking about things like how they need to buff the older characters and fix the UI and do all of this stuff, right, that players have been giving feedback and complaining about. This dev over here, Y, the lead developer of ZZZ, is on the record basically admitting fault for a lot of things that the game did wrong. And so when we're in this situation where the devs themselves are talking about a lot of the issues going on, well, it's unfortunate that there are so many members of the community who insist that everything's okay, who insist that no matter what the devs have already admitted to, no matter what problems currently exist, they'll just say, oh, you can just deal with it. You can just do this instead. The game gives you all the tools you need to solve the problem, and so it's not a big deal. But clearly, even the lead designer of the game is thinking otherwise. And so with that, what I wanted to do was dive into what I think is really just a good example of how the ZZZ team, or sorry, not the ZZZ team, because the devs actually know what they're doing, what the ZZZ community is kind of exemplified by. And so we have a post over here in Gacha Police, a very popular gacha community, talking about, or really critiquing, the last Shiyu defense run that I had. Talking about how, bro, 3 mins on one side is impressive, to be honest, like Zam. No war, no nothing. It's just something I can't believe. And clearly, they're shit-talking about how I wasn't able to get an S in the latest Shiyu defense, which has had, let's be honest here, some of the most HP inflation that the game has ever seen. I'm on the record showing some of the data of Shiyu defense, how in 1.6 the second half, ZZZ had about a 41% HP increase from way back in ZZZ 1.4. And there are so many people talking about how, oh, he didn't mention how ZZZ in 1.4, they adjusted the ultimates so that all 3 party members could use them at the same time. Why do you idiots think I started at 1.4? To all those people that made that commentary and thought that it was going to be a huge gotcha, why do you think I started the chart at version 1.4, the update when the ultimates were changed? Why do you think I didn't start at version 1.0? You would have had a point talking about the ultimates being adjusted to 3 if I used 1.0 Shiyu defense, but instead I started at 1.4 to account for that. You absolute idiots. And this is the thing. There is just a lack of critical thinking in the ZZZ community. There's a lack of pattern recognition, and individuals are just going ahead and proving the theory that I had before, that TVs and the game's rough launch and the relative unplayability of so many of the early patches drove away pretty much all of the intelligent members of the community. And the only people that we have left are absolute ding-dongs who cannot critically think themselves out of a fucking paper bag. And unfortunately, right, it's propagated. And the only members of the ZZZ community left are those who have genuinely no idea what they're talking about, and they're not able to understand a single argument being put forth by CCs. Why do you think nobody covers this game anymore? There's a reason for it. I think there are multiple reasons for it. I think it's a lot of the reasons that the devs are talking about over here. I think that the game, in a lot of ways, right, can be considered hard to watch. I think that there are some issues with it. Definitely, right? And the devs think so themselves. But I do think another issue is the community. I think another issue is the community. And so here we're going to see some indisputable facts. Looking at Pridewin and their Zenless Zone Zero Shiyu defense analytics for some of the best clear times with data from 45k players, with the lowest time being 1 minute and 51 seconds. You multiply that by 2. If you have 2 Miyabis, you're just above like 3 minutes and 40 seconds on the average clear time. And guess what? As you start going down the list, right, you're seeing Zhu Yan at 2 minutes 29 seconds, Haramasa at 2 minutes 26, Qing Yi at 2 minutes 25. Guess what? As you start going down, right, and you start seeing these characters who are at 3 minutes, like Jane Doe, and Ellen at 3 minutes and 2 seconds, guess what? those units, those characters, they're not actually clearing with an A. If you have 2 of them, that means that the time has exceeded 5 minutes for an S rank clear. And this is what we're seeing from 45k players. And that's at M0 and all W engines. That is with the signature. And so let's see what it's like with only the free ones. We're already past. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are only 7 characters. There are only 7 characters currently with the free W engines that are above the S rank mark. Look at how many limited characters are sitting below the line. 1, 2. Silver Ambi just released this patch. Guess they should have made her stronger. It's insane. I don't think I even need to talk about this. And this is the same exact community that's going ahead and trying to argue against HP inflation. This is the same community that will, in every single way possible, try to find a reason, try to find a justification for the game becoming more and more unachievable with every single Xiaoyu defense. This is the community that's just going to go ahead and blame people who are calling out the bad behavior, the endless justification, and say that the CCs are the problem, that the people pointing out the issues are the problem, when in reality, it's the community that's constantly bending over backwards to justify every single issue, to say that the devs are actually doing nothing wrong, to say that there are actually no problems at all, when the devs themselves made a 14-minute video talking about all of the massive problems with the fucking game. The level of toxic positivity that exists in this community is absolutely unreal. The amount of toxic positivity that just brings itself forward every single time anybody tries to talk about issues with this game as it's actively dying is insane. And the issue is, it never ends. Because guess what? Like I said before, all the reasonable people in the community, all the people with the ability to critically think have disappeared. They've left. They've gone to better games. They've gone to do better things. They're probably playing Wuthering Waves instead, a game with developers that are actually going ahead and making updates, and a game with a community that openly accepts criticism. And this is the thing. I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna talk about it right now. Right after we're, basically making jokes, talking about how awful my clear is, when basically everybody's clear is fucking awful at this point in the most recent version of the Xiaoyu defense. We're just going ahead, taking some of the facts, ignoring them, and then critiquing me for my clears, even though it's focused on the decisions the devs are making with HP inflation. We're going ahead and saying, bro is blaming the community. Let me provide some context for the take that I was making. In this Xiaoyu defense over here, you're gonna see over here, this boss that I got 3 minutes and 16 seconds on, this boss has a shield. You can see it's weak to electric. And while this shield is active, it is immune to anomaly effects. You are not able to deal meaningful damage to it. And the only way to break this shield is to deal electro damage to it or stun it. And so that basically means this boss either takes a shit ton of time and is really, really, really annoying to deal with unless you bring an electro character or a shield. And this is what I said is a terrible design decision. This is what I said is player unfriendly. And this is what I said is not fun to deal with. Because guess what, guys? There's a difference between an enemy being resistant to an attribute and an enemy requiring a specific type of character to do anything at all to it. I cleared, absolutely, because I was able to eventually break it, using a team that's obviously not catered towards break. I was able to do it. And the thing is, people are just going ahead and saying that it's fine game design. That it's fine game design to have a boss that only 5 or 6 characters on the whole roster can actually deal with well. They're saying that it's good to have an essential role in a game. They're saying it's good to have a boss where you need a specific subset of attributes or a specific kit to work with. And the thing is, that's what I said is wrong with the community. That there are so many people with this Electro Shield boss just saying,
just use Electro. Just use a stunner. Well, you have a free ambi. Just use the free ambi.
They're missing the point. They're missing the point completely. Because why is there an enemy in the game that is this restricted in who you're supposed to use against it? Why not just balance the bosses? Why not just have enemies where They have a resistant to like, they're resistant to like one element or something, but then everyone else on the roster is viable. I'm asking them why they're in such a heavy support for a mechanic that makes it just an annoying experience to play. And there's never an actual answer. There are people that are constantly talking about, oh, he hates team building. He hates doing XYZ. How can I hate team building when I'm against a mechanic that is forcing you to use a certain type of character? Isn't that promoting team building? Doesn't it promote team building to be able to use a wide roster of characters versus being restricted to a specific archetype? Or else the boss is going to be one of the most annoying things in gacha gaming? It's insane. And this is the thing. That's what people are saying I'm blaming the community for. And now we got Drake's Revenge over here saying shit like, this is the problem I have with him. If someone did this for Woo-Wah, he would grill them into oblivion. But it's okay to do it to Hoyo Games, basically insinuating that I'm a shill who's just gonna critique every other game other than Woo-Wah. Or really, yeah, don't tell people to get good, which apparently I do in Wuthering Waves, if you aren't gonna do that in anything other than your favorite game. And this is the thing. Unfortunately, it does appear that Drake's Revenge, one of the most active members of this community, has the memory of a fucking goldfish. Because guess what? I made a video. I made the same exact critique for Woo-Wah when their TOA buff required Spectro Frazzle and Spectro Rover, a free character, was the only unit in the game who could trigger it. 2.1's TOA reset is a massive problem. And you can see from the thumbnail, Spectro Frazzle inflicted takes 5% extra damage. It didn't matter that Spectro Rover was free. Having this type of buff in the game heavily restricted your team building and did not feel good, because you only have 3 units you can use in Woo-Wah and ZZZ, and being forced to slot in a certain type of character just to get advantages or deal with the enemies or buffs is just not fun. It's just not something that players necessarily want to do or support. And this is the thing. This is a video that's critiquing the game. I'm calling the reset a massive problem. That was a like ratio. Yeah, that's about like 90, 96, 97, 98, 99%. That's the like ratio of that video, of me saying that Kuro done fucked it all up. That Kuro made a TOA buff that was not fun to use. Despite not really being predatory, it was just not really fun to use, and it wasn't fun for team building, and it wasn't a good experience. You'll see from the dislike ratio that the Woo-Wah community was incredibly open to the critique, while the ZZZ community, which I just talked about with the Electro Shield, will just tell you to deal with it and just use Impact or Electro, bro, in the face of a dog shit mechanic. And that's why I say the ZZZ community has a massive fucking problem. That's why I had so many harsh words for ZZZ players, because you have conditioned yourself to accept dog shit mechanics, to just hand wave anything that's really not good for the game, hand wave critiques, and just say that they don't exist. Because, oh, you can just use this free character instead, while dodging and refusing to actually acknowledge the main issue that's being brought up. And so we even have another chatter, right, going in and talking about it and still trying to justify it. Wow, you can't use 7 other characters. So restrictive. While Spectro Frazzle was just 1 character. And this is what I meant, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I meant, ladies and gentlemen, by the community lacking any ability to critically think. It doesn't matter how many characters do this. It's a unique mechanic that every unit doesn't have. And so all this means is that you are basically being forced to utilize a specific type of unit. It doesn't matter how many of those units there are. The fact that not every unit has this, and the fact that you are basically, I mean, this is the thing, right? Remember how I just said the ZZZ community is going to bend over backwards to justify and defend against any critique of their game. This is what I meant by that. And it's becoming abundantly clear. There's no ability to actually reason with the points that are being made. And as we're like moving forward, right, we're still bending over backwards. We have the legend coming back at it again, completely not even registering anything that I've said. And all he does is just post a photo of somebody clearing Shiyu defense number 7 without an electro unit. IDK, someone here didn't use electric units at all and didn't clear. I think I know the main reason why most content creators are leaving ZZZ. Because I think simply interacting with this community over the long term just lowers your IQ. I think it just lowers your IQ. I think you actively get stupider the more and more ZZZ content you make. Because you have to be interacting with these absolute dumbasses on a daily fucking basis. You have to be interacting with all of these absolute idiots on a daily fucking basis. And so I responded with, why are you posting like this? Like I didn't clear with an S. I cleared this Shiyu defense. I actually did get an S. These individuals simply cherry-picked the VOD from my fucking stream on the one time I didn't clear it, and then proceeded to not even mention the fact that I actually did clear with an S. Because guess what? I got a really fucking long time of 3 minutes, right? Against this boss because of that electric shield, and I didn't use an electric or stun character. And then I proceeded to use Miyabi, the most broken fucking character in the game, and then cleared the second side in 1 minute and 46 seconds. I used the most broken character in the game in one of the best teams for that character, and then proceeded to clear the other side in less than 2 minutes. Because guess what? The game is not balanced. This is why I say all the time, this is why I talk so much about Miyabi ruining the game. Because you can clearly see over here, this unit does so much work relative to anybody on the roster. There's a reason why whenever we look at these Shiyu defense records, right, with free W engines, she has a 12-second lead. She has a 12 fucking second lead over the next unit. When we go back to all W engines, she has a 5-second lead. It's because the game is literally balanced around her. The game is balanced around her being on your account. I don't know when she's not gonna be in the top spot, and this is why I talk about her all the time. But the problem is, and the thing is, the ZZZ community simply has no ability to recognize why there are so many people having problems with the game. And whenever somebody does have a problem, they simply dogpile them and just say, just do this thing instead. It's a skill issue. You're just not playing that well. Ha, look at this tourist. Look at this tourist. Without recognizing that these people that they're saying have a skill issue, that these people they're saying are tourists, are playing the game better than 97% of players. The only people left in this game that are this vocal about it and this toxically positive about it are like these top 1-2% players that are just playing the game for 8 hours a day, practicing pixel perfect rotations, and then expecting that everyone else should be doing the exact same fucking thing. And so, in a response, right? In a response to me clearing with an S on Shiyu Defense 7, this is what this dumbass member of the ZZZ community says. You said it's restricted team building because I was able to post a clear where I get an S rank by 8 seconds. I clear in about 4 minutes and 52 seconds when my limit for an S is 5. And I respond with, all right, I think you've confirmed you're actually stupid. If that's the only thing you've extracted from my take. And that's the thing. I think they are. I really think the ZZZ community has a massive problem. And this was the response to that. Okay, do what you see fit. But you shouldn't force yourself to play a game that you don't like the core design of it. I go ahead. I complain about one unit that has an obtusely restrictive mechanic built into its kit where you require an electric or stun character to meaningfully deal with it. I complain about one unit. And the response to that one unit complaint, just quit the game, bro. Just stop playing. You complaining about one unit means that you have something with the core design of the game. You have something, you find something wrong with the core design of the game. Just quit, bro. And funnily enough, in that stream, from when I was playing ZZZ, you wanna know what I said? You wanna know what I talked about when it comes to the devs actually doing stuff well? I actually applauded the design of the armored dog that loses its armor if you parry it 3 times or stun it. I say that's a good mechanic. And I also cite how the electromech that we've talked about plenty enough over here is awful design. Because guess what? When it comes to that dog, you can just use any team and deal with it. You can deal with it in your gameplay, or you can slot an impact character and just break it and not have to worry about the parries. But you have a way based off your decisions in game, and not the characters that you're slotting into the team, not the roles, not the elements, to deal with it. And so I say one enemy having a dog shit mechanic means I should just quit the game. And that's why I call the ZZZ community toxic. That's why I say they have a massive problem. That's why I say they have an elitist issue. That's why I say they have an intelligence issue, because they're not able to fundamentally understand any of the critiques that people are making for the game, they see it as an attack on the devs and the community when the devs themselves are saying that they fucked it all up. I imagine that after this dev talk, that content critical of ZZZ would be more openly accepted, that they would recognize that the opinions that they have about the game, the takes that they have about the game, aren't even reflected by the developers themselves. But apparently, this wasn't enough. Apparently, the devs themselves saying that there's shit wrong with the game wasn't enough. And that's the issue. And so this guy just goes ahead. He just keeps responding. He just keeps saying dumb shit. He just keeps like talking about like, oh, it's like a core element, even though there's only one enemy in the game with the shield. It's just ridiculous, right? We're just still bending over backwards. We're talking about like stats and stuff. And people are just playing so much defense for this entire situation, for this basically dog shit enemy. And we also have other members of the community, right? Saying that I wouldn't make this critique about Wuwa. That if people made this critique about Wuwa, I would tell them to get better when I literally have multiple videos making critiques about it. And you want to know the best part about it all? You want to know why I talk about Wuthering Waves and what it's doing so well? We just talked about how this Spectral Frazzle buff, right? Where Rover was the only character who could apply it, and that made team building restrictive, and that was annoying. You want to know what Kuro did in response to that? They proceeded to modify future versions of that buff, future iterations of that buff, to ensure that every unit in the game could apply Spectral Frazzle. They updated it. They kept the same damage bonus. As you build up the stacks, you deal more damage to the enemy, but they made sure that every unit in the game could apply Spectral Frazzle with a heavy attack. And so you didn't need the Spectral Rover. You didn't need the Phoebe to activate the buff. You could use any unit in the game, just heavy attack with them, and you'd be able to apply the buff. That's why I said the reset is almost perfect, because the devs actually listened. The devs recognized that they had a feature in the game that was really fucking annoying. That was really annoying. That was really restrictive in your team building. And then they proceeded to loosen it. They kept the same exact advantages, but simply made it more accessible so that you didn't need these two characters on the roster to fully activate it. And that's the thing, ZZZ players. That's the difference. This is what happens when the community doesn't play defense for bad design decisions. This is what happens when the community is open to critique about their fucking game. This is what happens when the community is allowed to be critical of the developers and they don't get dogpiled on and made fun of and told about their skill issue or that they're a tourist whenever they want to talk about something with the game. That's why Wuthering Waves doesn't have this. That's why Wuthering Waves doesn't have a fucking 41% HP inflation across 2 fucking patches. That's why Wuthering Waves doesn't have 90% of the roster not being viable when they don't have a signature weapon. Every single unit below Sokaku over here is getting an A rank in Shiyu defense. Just so you know, every unit below Sokaku here is getting an A rank in Shiyu defense. And we've seen it in every Hoyo game. We've seen this mindset. We've seen this copium. We've seen this toxic positivity ruin every Hoyoverse game. And you finally have a developer who's willing to admit fault, pinpoint everything wrong with the game, talk about how they're going to fix it, give actual solutions. You have the opportunity to break the toxic positivity mold and actually be a shining example of what a good gacha game actually looks like. The devs are leading the way, and you still keep doing the same exact dumb shit over and over and over that ruined HSR, that ruined Genshin Impact. You just are making it ruin ZZZ too, and you don't stop. There's a reason why CCs don't want to cover this game. I think that part of it is because of the game itself, but I think another big fucking part of it is the community. Because anytime you have a legitimate critique, they will hand wave it aside. They'll say some dumb shit, some dumb justification, and they'll try to discredit you. No matter how much logic, how many facts, how much glue, how much evidence you bring to the situation. And it is just so exhausting to interact with this community. And especially if you're somebody that's coming over from Wuthering Waves, the community that actually listens to critique, that actually wants good updates, that actually wants good changes. And then you plop on over to ZZZ and you have people arguing with you about fucking numbers, telling you that HP inflation doesn't exist when there's a fucking graph and actual data showing you that it does. It's exhausting. Nobody wants to deal with a community this stupid. Nobody wants to deal with people who won't have basic pattern recognition. It's fucking tiring. And I think it's a big reason why people have stopped covering this game. Or if they've stopped covering it, why they're not coming back. Do you want to see something about ZZZ as you're playing defense for it? Let me show you something about the Twitch tracker. Why do you think the game, currently on Twitch, why do you think I have right now more viewers than the entire ZZZ category? Why do you think that is? Because the game is progressively getting worse every single update, and you're just going ahead and you're preventing any dialogue on how the game can get better. You're saying shit like, imagine thinking Twitch numbers matter. You're saying dumb shit like this as your game proceeds to lose 40% of its average viewers every update. And you're just going ahead and saying, imagine thinking Twitch numbers matter. This is why I said everybody intelligent in the ZZZ community has already left. This is why I said TV's filtered any person with an IQ above 70, above 60. This is why I say the ZZZ community has a massive fucking problem. If going ahead, right, and simply saying that ZZZ 1.7 is disappointing is enough to get mass downvoted by the community. Simply saying that the update that has pretty much nothing fucking in it is disappointing after a dev talk where they talked about how they're gonna fix the game. Imagine me simply saying that this update is disappointing is gonna get this many downvotes. It got brigaded to 80% within minutes. This is the community that's going ahead and is getting blamed. Yes, I am blaming the community. I am blaming the community because it is one of the biggest problems that ZZZ fucking has. Unless you're gooning, there's no actual discussion going on with the game. There's no actual meaningful gameplay discussion. All people talk about is jerking off to the characters. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna get dogpiled on by all of these elitists who refuse to believe that their game is actively dying. And it's disgusting to deal with as a CC. It's disgusting to deal with as a CC, as somebody who actually knows how to critically think, as somebody who wants to make the game better. Because these idiots, when the game looks like this on Twitch, these are the idiots telling you that the game is perfectly fine, that the game has no issues at all, that when the game is literally on a downtrend, even after the massive popularity of 1.4, they're telling you that everything is fine. And this is the best part. You wanna know where ZZZ is going right now? You see that in the corner? Epic 7, a game released 7 years ago? It has more viewers than ZZZ. Epic 7 has more viewers than ZZZ. A game released 7 years ago. Twitch views don't matter? You absolute fucking dumbass. You're so stupid, it's unbelievable. You're so dumb, it's ridiculous. Oh yeah, Twitch views don't matter? Yeah, I'd say that too if I was getting my ass wiped by a 7-year-old game. I'd say Twitch views don't matter either if my ass was getting fucking cleaned out like this by a 7-year-old game. So yes, ZZZ has a lot of issues, but the community itself, there's a reason why I'm blaming them. They're one of the biggest issues of them all, because you're gonna pretend that none of these issues exist. You're gonna pretend that none of these are problems, as viewership on every single platform declines. It's unfortunate, but the thing is, if this game wants to thrive in 2.0, if we want this dev talk to actually yield fruit, then this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. The community is one of the first things that have to change. The community for this game is one of the first things that needs to change, because so many people are just beyond toxic positivity. I think they might be worse than Genshin. I think they might be worse than HSR. The devs themselves are telling you what's wrong with the game, and the community is still saying that it doesn't exist, that it's not a problem. That's why I say it's worse than HSR. It's worse than Genshin, because these guys are actually trying to fix the game, and you're doing everything in your power to stop them. And this is me calling them out. Let me know what you all think. Peace.